Captain's Log, Cycle 3472, Galactic Survey Corps. Look, I'm not saying I deserve a promotion after this disaster, but someone should definitely be demoted, preferably whoever classified humans as harmless. I am, or was Captain Krell of the GSC Pathfinder, tasked with cataloging primitive species across this backwater spiral arm. Earth was supposed to be a routine assignment. Get in, collect specimens, document behaviors, get out. 3 cycles, tops. They're barely into their nuclear age, my superior had said with that annoying nasal click he does when he's being condescending. Simple bipeds with delusions of grandeur. Should be straightforward. Hey, straightforward like a quantum torpedo to the face. When we first arrived in orbit, I'll admit Earth seemed unimpressive. Their technology? Primitive. Their planetary management? Catastrophic. Their political systems? Laughable. But they had one peculiarity that caught our attention immediately. They willingly shared their dwellings with other species. Are they farming these creatures inside their homes? Asked Technician Morla during our first briefing. She was young, inexperienced. We all laughed. No, explained our xenobiologist, Jerome. He projected images across the command center, humans cradling smaller creatures, humans sleeping beside furry quadrupeds, humans speaking to birds in cages. They call them pets. They serve no apparent practical purpose. They must eat them eventually, suggested Security Chief Plex. Always practical, that one. Negative. They feed these animals, shelter them, provide medical care, and even grieve when they expire. They form emotional attachments. The bridge erupted with laughter. I nearly spilled my nutrient solution. What evolutionary advantage could that possibly serve? I asked, wiping my exoskeleton. Maintaining non-productive organisms? Wasting resources on species that don't contribute to survival? It's absurd. Dervin shrugged his upper appendages. Humans are emotional creatures. Perhaps it satisfies some psychological need. Well, I said, straightening my command harness, we found their weakness then. Any species that diverts resources to non-functional relationships is clearly operating at a disadvantage. Oh, how we laughed that day. How smugly superior we felt. I'm not laughing anymore. None of us are. Because as it turns out, those pets, especially the 4-legged carnivores they call dogs, aren't a weakness at all. And we learned that lesson the hard way. Our standard first contact protocol is quite thorough, you know. We don't just bumble onto planets like primitive explorers. The Galactic Survey Corps has 8,000 years of refined methodology. Procedure PX 7293 specifically covers pre-FTL species observation and collection. I helped write the manual. Step 1. Establish orbital surveillance. Earth's detection systems are hilariously inadequate, barely better than pointing sticks at the sky. Our cloaking technology makes their satellites look like children's toys. Step 2. Catalog the dominant species according to the Universal Taxonomy Index. Humans fell under classification T3947, carbon-based bipedal omnivores with limited cognitive capacity and excessive emotional responses. The notes actually contained the phrase caution, prone to irrational attachment behaviors. We should have paid more attention to that part. Step 3. Collect representative specimens for detailed study. The manual recommends selecting from different geographical regions, age ranges, and social hierarchies. We'll need a diverse sample, said Dervan during our collection planning session. He pulled up the global population map, glowing spots representing human concentration centers. I recommend 5 to 7 individuals. What about their companion species? Asked Morla, scrolling through images of humans with various animals. The small felines? The colorful aquatic organisms? The barking quadrupeds? Plex made that rumbling sound in his thoracic cavity that passes for laughter among his kind. Why not collect the whole menagerie? The more, the merrier, as humans say. Actually, Jerome interjected, adjusting his ocular enhancers, the relationship with the canines appears most prevalent. The files classify them as dogs, descended from wolves, but selectively bred for docility and dependency. Base functionally parasitic. Parasitic? They contribute nothing? I asked. Some negligible security functions. Occasional service uses. Primarily, they consume resources and stimulate human nurturing instincts through neotenic features, infantile characteristics that trigger caretaking behaviors. So they manipulate humans into caring for them? Security Chief Plex seemed almost impressed. Perhaps these dogs are the real intelligent species. Hardly, scoffed Jerome. They're simple creatures driven by food rewards and social hierarchies. The interesting phenomenon is how humans anthropomorphize them, attribute sentience and emotions far beyond their actual capabilities. I made the executive decision then. We'll collect 3 human specimens, each with their canine companion. Perfect controlled experiment to observe this peculiar relationship. The extraction team prepped the targeted acquisition beams. We would select isolated humans to minimize witness contamination. Rural areas, nighttime abductions, standard procedure. Remember, I instructed the team before deployment. These are barely sentient emotional bipeds. They'll be frightened, irrational. Nothing our containment systems can't handle. And the dogs are even simpler, basically organic automatons responding to training. This should be routine. Narrator's note: it was not, in fact, routine. Our acquisition team returned with 3 human specimens and their canine companions, all properly sedated and processed according to protocol. I supervised the intake personally, partly out of scientific curiosity, partly because watching Jerome get excited about new specimens is always entertaining. He practically vibrates his exoskeleton off. Subject A, designated Marcus Townsend, Jerome announced, hovering over the unconscious human male as the medical scanners documented every biological detail. Age 34, occupation military veteran and wilderness guide. Currently residing in a remote dwelling in the Montana region. Excellent physical condition. Numerous healed injuries consistent with combat experience. And his pet? I asked, looking at the large canine in the adjacent containment field. Canis lupus familiaris, German Shepherd breed. Designated Rex. Age approximately 6 years. Also in peak physical condition. Microchip indicates military training background. They apparently served together according to the data we extracted from their primitive information networks. I examined the creature through the barrier. Even sedated, it looked powerful, muscular, more wolf than the decorative animals we'd observed in urban settings. Subject B, designated Eliza Nakamura, continued Jerome, moving to the next containment unit. Age 27, occupation wildlife biologist. Captured near her research station in Alaska. The human female was smaller but appeared equally robust. Athletic build, weather-worn features. Her canine companion is designated Bella. Mixed breed, predominantly husky and Malamute. Approximately 4 years old. Used for transportation and companionship in extreme weather conditions. The third pairing was equally notable. Subject C, Jerome Washington. Age 42, occupation search and rescue coordinator. Captured from the Colorado Mountain region during a solitary training exercise. This human was darker-skinned, with interesting scarification patterns. No, wait, Jerome informed me those were called scars, is evidence of past injuries from his dangerous occupation. His canine, designated Cooper, is a border collie, approximately 5 years old, bred for intelligence and work capability. Data indicates this animal has participated in numerous rescue operations, locating humans after natural disasters. Fascinating, I noted, though not entirely impressed. So these are working relationships, not just the emotional parasitism we observed in urban settings? Correct, Dervin confirmed. These represent human-canine partnerships with practical applications, optimal for studying the full spectrum of interaction. Our containment protocol dictated separate holding facilities for different species. Standard procedure prevents cross-contamination, simplifies observation, and reduces variables. So we moved the humans to the humanoid containment deck and the canines to the non-sentient quadruped section. That, as it turned out, was our first major mistake. The sedation wore off exactly as calculated. The humans woke first, and immediately all three began demanding the same thing, with increasing desperation and volume. "Where's Rex? I need to see Bella. What have you done with Cooper?" We hadn't even started the experiments, and already they were fixating on their animals instead of their own predicament. Truly bizarre priorities. The first 48 hours of observation were perplexing. I've studied hundreds of sentient species across the galaxy, and normally when they're abducted, they focus on predictable concerns: escape, self-preservation, understanding their captors, negotiating release. Rational priorities. Not humans, apparently. Day 2 of captivity, and Subject Marcus continues to prioritize inquiries about the canine over his own situation. Dervin noted, his frustration evident as he recorded the observation log. Refusing nutrition unless provided information about Rex. Through the observation screen, I watched the human male pace his containment cell, occasionally striking the transparent barrier with his fist. His vital signs showed elevated stress hormones, increased blood pressure, and all the physiological markers of extreme distress. "Where's my dog?" Marcus demanded for perhaps the 57th time. "If you've heard him, I swear to God I'll." Fascinating how they invoke their deities as part of threat displays, remarked Morla, who had developed a particular interest in human linguistics and cultural references. The female subject Eliza was employing a different strategy, sitting calmly in her cell, but absolutely refusing to engage in any testing protocols without her family member present. "I'm not answering a single question until I see that Bella is safe," she stated flatly when Dervin attempted to begin cognitive assessment. "She's not used to being alone. She gets anxious." "The canine gets anxious," repeated Plex incredulously. Yet the human, who has been abducted by aliens, is concerned about the animal's emotional state, backward priorities. The third subject, Jerome, alternated between hostile non-cooperation and attempts to explain the relationship to us, as if we were the irrational ones. "You don't understand," he told the interview drone. "Cooper isn't just a pet. He's my partner. My teammate. We've saved dozens of lives together. He's family." This must be an evolutionary flaw, I theorized during our research meeting. A maladaptive extension of pack bonding instincts. They've anthropomorphized these animals to such an extent that they prioritize the animal's welfare over their own survival. "Should we sedate them?" asked Medical Officer Trisk. "Their stress levels are approaching harmful thresholds." No, I decided. This emotional vulnerability may prove useful. Perhaps we can leverage their attachment to the canines to ensure cooperation. Dervin's upper appendages twitched thoughtfully. "I suggest we allow brief, supervised reunions. It will stabilize the human's mental state for testing and provide valuable observation of the interaction dynamics." I approved the suggestion, not realizing we were about to witness something that would completely upend our understanding of human capability. The observation chamber was set up perfectly as sterile, controlled environment with monitoring equipment cataloging every physiological response, every micro-expression, with every pheromone release. The human subjects were secured in draconium restraints, a material capable of withstanding forces up to 80 times their species' maximum recorded strength. Completely unnecessary overkill, Dervin had joked during setup. We weren't laughing for long. "Today's experiment will measure emotional response thresholds in human-canine attachments," I announced to the research team. "We need to establish quantifiable data on the limits of this peculiar bond." "How do you propose we do that?" asked Morla, looking uncomfortable. She'd grown oddly protective of the test subjects, a concerning development I planned to address later. "Simple stress escalation protocol," Dervin explained, adjusting the neural scanner arrays. "We'll introduce stimuli that suggest potential harm to the canine companions and measure the human's psychological and physiological responses." Plex's mandibles clicked with approval. Efficient. No actual harm necessary, just the perception of threat. "Precisely," I confirmed. "We begin with mild suggestions and escalate until we establish threshold boundaries." The canines were brought in first, each in separate containment fields that allowed visibility but prevented physical contact. The humans immediately showed signs of relief upon seeing their companions unharmed, their stress markers decreasing substantially. "Rex, good boy," called Marcus, his voice containing an unusual emotional resonance. "Bella, it's okay, girl, it's okay," Eliza reassured her animal, though the canine appeared far calmer than the human. "Cooper, stay strong, buddy," Jerome said in that strange, high-pitched tone humans use with their pets. We allowed this reunion to continue for 7 minutes exactly before initiating Phase 1. "Subjects," announced the automated system, "we will now demonstrate our research capabilities." A simulation drone entered the chamber, approaching the German Shepherd's containment field. The drone carried standard examination tools, nothing particularly threatening by any rational standard. "Please be advised that comprehensive testing of companion organisms will commence shortly," continued the announcement as the drone activated a tissue sampling probe. "The process may cause temporary discomfort to the non-sentient subjects." The reaction was instantaneous and wildly disproportionate. "Don't you dare touch him," Marcus shouted, straining against his restraints. His vital signs spiked dramatically, heart rate doubling, adrenal output surging, muscle tension increasing by approximately 340%. "Fascinating," murmured Dervan, watching the readings. "Such an extreme protective response for a non-related species." "Continuing to Phase 2, I ordered, finding the data promising. The drone produced a more substantial-looking device, still harmless, but visually intimidating. It approached Rex and activated a low-level force field that caused the animal minor, momentary discomfort. The dog yelped once. What happened next defies explanation by any conventional understanding of human physiology. The monitoring equipment shrieked with alarms as Marcus's physiological readings went completely off scale. His core temperature spiked, brain activity patterns shifted to previously unrecorded configurations, and his muscular output. "Impossible," Dervin whispered, as the draconium restraints designed to hold creatures 4 times human size and strength began to deform. "Increase security measures," I ordered, but it was already too late. With a roar that sounded nothing like the vocalizations we had cataloged from humans, Marcus tore free from restraints rated to withstand the strength of a Kordaxian war beast. His facial features contorted, pupils dilated fully, and blood vessels visibly pulsed beneath his skin. He breached containment. Plex shouted unnecessarily as Marcus literally ripped the control panel from the wall and used it to smash the drone into unrecognizable fragments before anyone could react. The draconium door separating him from Rex's containment, a barrier that could withstand military-grade weaponry, didn't even slow him down. He tore it from its molecular bonding, as if it were constructed from defective cellular fiber. "This is impossible," I kept repeating, watching our carefully controlled experiment descend into chaos. "Humans don't possess this physical capability. It's not in their biological profile. Except, apparently, when someone threatens their dog." The emergency containment alarms blared throughout the research deck, a sound I had never actually heard outside of training simulations. In 8,000 years of Galactic Survey Corps history, no test subject had ever breached primary containment. Until now. "Restrain the other subjects," I ordered, my voice barely audible over the chaos. But it was already too late. Eliza and Jerome, witnessing Marcus's impossible feat of strength, exchanged a single glance that somehow communicated volumes. Their expressions shifted simultaneously, a terrifying transformation from frightened captives to something primal. "Cooper needs me," Jerome stated with eerie calmness, his vitals displaying the same anomalous patterns we'd seen in Marcus seconds before. "Bella, hang on girl, I'm coming," Eliza said, her voice dropping to a register lower than her previous vocalizations. Their restraints never stood a chance. Jerome didn't bother with brute force like Marcus. His approach was methodical, calculated. He went completely still, then executed a series of precise movements, dislocating his own thumb without hesitation, sliding his hand free, then manipulating the restraint mechanism in a way our engineers had deemed mathematically impossible. The speed and precision suggested he'd analyzed the entire system's vulnerabilities in seconds. Eliza, meanwhile, had somehow contorted her body in ways that defied our understanding of human skeletal limitations. She shouldn't have been able to compress her shoulder structure to that degree. The medical team would later describe it as anatomically impossible. Security Chief Plex deployed the emergency suppression drone's 14 combat-grade units programmed for non-lethal neutralization. On paper, each drone could subdue 5 Centurion gladiators simultaneously. The humans treated them like training exercises. Jerome evaded the first wave with movement patterns that seemed to anticipate the drone's targeting algorithms. He used their momentum against them, causing 3 units to crash into each other while he rolled underneath a 4th, somehow extracting and repurposing its control module in mid-motion. "Their coordination is unprecedented," gasped Dervan, furiously documenting the scene even as evacuation protocols activated around us. Eliza had armed herself with a piece of broken equipment, wielding it with the proficiency of a trained shock trooper. 2 security officers made the mistake of attempting to subdue her physically. Both were in medical stasis now with multiple fractures. "Fascinating adaptive combat techniques," Dervan continued, his scientific curiosity apparently overriding his survival instinct. "Their pattern matching our technology with no prior exposure." But the truly astonishing part came when they reached their canine companions. The moment Marcus freed Rex from his containment field, they moved together with the synchronized precision of a binary star system. No verbal commands, no hesitation. The German Shepherd immediately flanked his human, covering his vulnerabilities, responding to subtle hand signals and body postures I hadn't even noticed. "Are they telepathically linked?" Morla asked in genuine confusion as Bella and Eliza executed a flawless pincer movement against the second wave of security drones. The dog anticipated her owner's maneuvers, creating distractions at precisely the right moments, herding the drones into optimal positions for Eliza to neutralize. Jerome and Cooper were perhaps the most unnervingly efficient. The border collie seemed to process complex tactical information from minimal cues: a glance, a subtle gesture, then executed precise movements that complemented Jerome's strategy. The pair disabled our primary communication array in 17 seconds, working together to access components neither could have reached alone. This isn't random aggression, I realized, watching the nightmare unfold on monitors as we retreated to the secondary command center. They're functionally operating as single combat units. The dogs aren't pets or even partners, they're extensions of the humans themselves. By the time we initiated station-wide lockdown protocols, 3 decks had fallen. We huddled in the emergency command center, watching through security feeds as our ship, a vessel designed to withstand asteroid impacts and cosmic radiation, was systematically dismantled from the inside by 3 humans and their canine companions. "How is this possible?" Morla asked, her exoskeleton pale with stress. Nothing in our data suggested humans possessed these capabilities. I stared at the monitors, watching Jerome and Cooper methodically disable our propulsion systems while Eliza and Bella secured the armory. Marcus and Rex had somehow reached the detention level and were freeing other test subjects. That's when it hit me. "We fundamentally misunderstood everything," I said slowly, the realization crystallizing. Computer, access Earth historical database, cross-reference human and canine evolutionary records. The display shifted to show timeline data, and Jerome gasped as he saw the pattern. They evolved together, he whispered, for over 15,000 years. Not just alongside each other, I corrected, scanning the data. With each other. For each other. The evidence was right there in Earth's fossil record, in their DNA, in their shared biological history. Humans hadn't simply domesticated wolves into dogs. The two species had entered a coevolutionary pact. Each shaped the other, biologically, socially, cognitively. The bond isn't a weakness or an evolutionary flaw, Jerome marveled, his scientific passion momentarily overshadowing our dire situation. It's possibly the most successful interspecies partnership in their planet's history. The security feed showed Marcus' communication with Rex through subtle gestures invisible to our previous observation. Not crude commands, but complex information exchange developed over thousands of generations of partnership. What we're witnessing isn't an aberration, I realized. It's their baseline capability when properly motivated. The humans have essentially been operating at reduced capacity until we threatened their counterparts. Counterparts? Questioned Plex, watching Bella systematically disable another security checkpoint with Eliza. Yes, I confirmed. Not pets. Not tools. Not even companions in the way we understood. They're interspecies teams that evolved specifically to enhance each other's capabilities. The emotional bond we mocked? It's the biological glue that enables this functional partnership. A particularly loud explosion shook the command center, reminding us of our immediate peril. This changes our entire understanding of human potential, Jerome noted, still documenting observations even as the ship's integrity warning flashed on the main console. What we classified as emotional weakness is actually their greatest evolutionary advantage. Correct, I agreed grimly, and we just provided them with the perfect conditions to demonstrate it. What did the manual call it? Protecting the pack. We should have paid more attention to that warning. Another explosion, closer this time. All this time. I added, watching the humans and dogs move with impossible synchronization through our supposedly impenetrable defenses. We thought humans kept dogs because they were weak. Now I understand humans aren't apex predators, despite their attachment to dogs. They're apex predators because of it. The final stage of their escape was almost elegant in its execution. Perhaps I should have expected nothing less. Marcus and Rex secured the primary shuttle bay, while Jerome and Cooper hacked into our navigation systems. Yes, hacked. A supposedly isolated quantum computing network, breached by a species that still uses internal combustion engines on their home planet. Cooper would retrieve physical components that Jerome needed, fetching specific parts with uncanny precision, while Jerome's fingers flew across our interfaces as if he'd been trained on them since hatching. He's rewriting our core protocols, Trisk reported in disbelief. How can he even understand our programming architecture? Eliza and Bella, meanwhile, systematically neutralized our remaining security measures. The human would identify threats and Bella would I don't even have terminology for what that animal was doing. Herding our security drones into trap configurations, predicting their movement patterns, manipulating their targeting sensors with precisely timed movements. Within 43 minutes of their initial containment breach, all three human-canine pairs had converged on the primary transport bay. They'd somehow managed to communicate across vast distances within the ship without using any technology we could detect. They're stealing the primary transport vessel, Plex reported, his mandibles clicking in agitation. Let them, I ordered. Security priority is now containment of knowledge. We cannot allow their home planet to discover our presence. The transport bay doors opened. On the monitor, I could see Marcus at the controls, Rex standing vigilant beside him. Jerome had rewired our communication systems, likely to prevent pursuit. Eliza was standing watch, Bella alerting to any approach with pricked ears. The last thing we saw before they launched was Marcus patting Rex's head and saying something our translation software rendered as, "Good boy. Let's go home." The transport's departure damaged 3 adjacent docking systems, our primary communication array, and punctured the atmospheric containment field in 2 sections. They hadn't just escaped, they'd ensured we wouldn't be following them anytime soon. "Damage report?" I asked wearily once emergency systems had stabilized. "Critical systems functioning at 37% capacity," reported Trisk. "Estimated repair time, 94 cycles. And the humans? Transport trajectory indicates Earth return. Their vessel contains memory-wiping technology, but given their demonstrated capabilities, we cannot guarantee the effectiveness of memory suppression." I took a long moment to process this humiliating defeat. In 8,000 years of exploration, no species had ever escaped Galactic Survey Corps containment. No test subjects had ever hijacked our technology. No primitives had ever bested our security. "Captain," prompted Dervin hesitantly, "standard protocol requires notification to the Galactic Registry regarding new species threat assessment." "Indeed," I sighed, accessing the emergency beacon. I composed the message carefully. "Urgent update, Terra Sol 3 species classification. Humans previously categorized as T3947 must be immediately reclassified as Omega-level potential threat. Do not, under any circumstances, threaten what they call dogs. Approach with extreme caution. Full report to follow." I paused, then added, "Note for all future survey missions. When you encounter a species that keeps another species as companions rather than food or slaves, do not assume this indicates weakness. It may indicate the most dangerous kind of strength." The beacon launched, its quantum signal spreading across the galactic communication network. Too late for us, perhaps. But hopefully in time to save some other poor fools from learning what happens when you threaten a dog in front of its human.